I'm Alexis Nunes alongside Janusz Michallik, and Sam Tighe is joining us as well for this one as we look back on what was the game that we just saw today. So many questions about this one, guys, because this, of course, was the headlining game for the Premier League on this big old Super Sunday. Manchester City up against Chelsea. City had just the 1-0 lead at home, but in the end, they squandered it. And some way, somehow, despite all the turmoil the Blues have been going through this week, in case anyone's been living under a rock and did not notice that Enzo Maresca and Chelsea are no more, they were able to grab a point to take back to London. Oh my days, how on earth they were able to do it in injury time, Janusz? I'm not sure. If we just were judging on the first half, I was saying this almost felt like a training ground game. It wasn't exactly the best advertisement for football, but in the end, after what we saw from the first half, Chelsea were able to get something back. How did they do it?
Well, I mean, we'll get deeper into that. Some adjustments in the second half that were significant, I suppose, because in the first half, Chelsea looked scared. You know, if there was going to be a bounce in some way, right? As always, some players like when the manager goes, some players don't, and you often expect something special. This is a special game. This is Chelsea Football Club against Manchester City, and it didn't look that way. It looked like it was a good thing that Maresca left, because he didn't leave anything behind himself. That's the way it looked in the first half. There were some adjustments, I suppose, but at the end of the day, when we look at this, we're seeing two massive clubs that are still nowhere near their potential.
Sam, what did you make of Chelsea's approach, especially in that first half as well? Because now when it's all said and done and we look at the results, we're almost like, okay, maybe that uber defensive approach really did work out. But as Janusz was saying, you do empathize with Chelsea a bit after the week they've been through. Enzo Maresca leaving. Now it's a bit panic stations. What is Chelsea going forward? What's their identity? And now they've got such a big game in Manchester City. But again, looking at the players, the demeanor, the fact that they didn't look like they were, tracking back as much, you almost wanted to shake them and wake them up and be like, guys, I know what you're going through, but this is still Manchester City you're going up against.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised, I think, from Chelsea's perspective, that they were able to shake off that first half malaise. I think maybe, the first 20 to 25 minutes, Chelsea were just standing there watching City move the ball around, and they were playing slow. To be honest, I think the first 20, 25 minutes of this game from both sides, it looked like walking football, and it was very boring to watch. But Chelsea were only playing like that, I think, in part because City were playing like that. City had the ball, and City were moving it so slowly. I was begging for them to speed up the play and start some combinations. And after 25 minutes or so, that started to happen. Erling Haaland started to get himself into the game, and Reinders started to get into the box. And there was a period then, towards the end of the first half, where City, I thought they were going to score 3. I thought they were going to put this game to bed. They did get the goal just before half-time. I thought they'd come out second half and stamp their authority on the game and get another one. Back to walking football, back to slow-paced stuff, and Chelsea were able to grow into the game. So I think my overriding feeling here is that Chelsea, I've got a lot of credit to dish out to them today for the adjustments they made that Janusz just mentioned and the way they stuck in the game. But I think City have let them get away with this. Like, City have let them off the hook with some very slow and forgiving football.
Yeah, Janusz, what do you think that is? I suppose now we're looking at it, and of course, it's a point gained for Chelsea in this one. But City, you're up at home. You are in a comfortable part of the season, in the sense that if we're talking about them chasing down Arsenal, it's something that we know that they have done before. So they have the comfort in that. But how could they let Chelsea get back into this game? Were they too cautious after scoring?
I don't know if they were too cautious. As Sam was saying, I mean, in the first half, there was enough to win it. I mean, if you look at the last City 2 games, I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, against Sunderland, they were so close. I mean, so many times. It's one of those games that's easy for us to talk about, Sunderland put in the work. We all know they're missing a lot of players, this and that, right? But ultimately, I agree with Pep after the Sunderland game. It was good. I mean, City played well and, should have won that. And same thing here. And that's just the difference, right? That's why Arsenal will likely win the Premier League, because you have everybody else just missing that something, right? Some are missing a lot more than Manchester City, because Manchester City are within reach. But, that little composure, right? I always come back to that. And I'll tell you the differences, because they're small and maybe excuses. But timing is everything, and City are so close, but they're missing that little composure. The David Silva moment, Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne. There isn't player that can put it all together like that. Cherky may be the one, and he looks from time to time, but he's just not ready yet. Maybe it takes time for him, right? Because that football is so intricate that sometimes you play it blindly, you play it by memory. And, when I think of Manchester City at their best, it was that memory. They just knew, no reason to look. It was one-touch football. Everybody knew where to move, and they're just 1 second too early or 1 second too late. In the end, and we'll get to the adjustment of Chelsea maybe because it made a difference, but I will say towards the end, you're playing without Gvardiol and without Diaz, two center backs that have been very, very good. In fact, Gvardiol has been outstanding finally playing in his position. And that last goal, the way he came in, yeah, it's easy to say had they been there, but I do believe that experience wouldn't allow for that play. I think City will close the game. When you take out two key players like that, sometimes stuff happens.
Yes, and we've been talking about defense pretty much all season long and how it has been vulnerable. Did Chelsea find a way to expose those vulnerabilities a bit more today?
Well, I think the injuries do help, yes, but I was really impressed with the manager, Callum McFarlane. I have to learn that one for a moment. Making some adjustments and being really proactive with his adjustments in this Chelsea team throughout the game. So they started off with the selection they picked. And in the end, because of the way City were moving and they had so many bodies in the center of the pitch and they used their fullbacks to be the only wide players moving up and down like this, everybody else goes in here and overloads the center. Estevao, who started on the right wing for Chelsea, kind of ended up at wing back, always marking Nico O'Reilly. And he just obviously doesn't look very comfortable doing that. It's not a criticism, but he's very early into his Premier League career, and playing that kind of role is really, really hard. It's definitely not his job. So after about 30 minutes, McFarlane switched it and he swapped Estevao and Neto on the wings, which meant that Neto was the one that was effectively playing wing back. Again, I think that's the first smart thing he did, recognizing that two of his players probably weren't getting the best out of themselves. Then at halftime, he took Estevao off completely and changed the system up, created a box midfield with four of them. And then after 60 minutes, put Delap on and had him run the channels against the centre-backs. Progressively, Chelsea worked their way into this game and tactically effectively won the midfield battle here. So these are all integral things that Callum McFarlane has changed over the course in about 15-minute segments to get Chelsea on top. I was really impressed. This is his first game as a manager. He's against Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, and he created a platform for Chelsea to go out there and eventually get the goal that got them a point. Really impressed.
Yeah, I was going to say that is massive props for him, because I don't know anybody who dares to challenge Pep Guardiola team and expects to win any midfield battle. But Janusz, what were the, I suppose, adjustments that made the difference for you?
I'm sort of, Sam almost got me to believe him towards the end there. Because it didn't take much, really, when you think about it. It shouldn't have taken all that much for Chelsea to be better and to dominate that midfield. I mean, Rodri was once again wonderful. I mean, for a player that missed so much the last two games, when you see him and, he's done everything that he needed to do. But I don't necessarily think it was the Estevao, the fact that he was dropping off so much. Sometimes the game forces you that way, no matter what you do. I think the idea was that, adding Andre Santos into that midfield, him alone, changed everything, because without Caicedo, we've talked about players missing. I mean, to be fair to Chelsea, when you don't have Caicedo, you don't have Fofana, who just fell out, I think, just before the game because he was ill, and Cucurella, obviously, that's big losses. I mean, Chelsea has never had consistent defense, and that's their bigger issue, this game or any other game. But I think what happened with Santos is allow Enzo to be a little bit freer, but most importantly, it pushed Cole Palmer a little bit higher, because Palmer was playing out wide. I don't know if he was helping on the, on that side. Estevao, maybe some, that's what it was. But definitely his starting position, it was forced a little bit because they were sitting so deep, Chelsea as a team. But I think Andre Santos, who, by the way, when he plays throughout the season, I think he's been very, very positive for Chelsea. I think, I'm not sitting here saying that Andre Santos changed the entire game, but helped immensely, because, by the way, Reece James was just average. That's a whole other story. Play him at right back and forget the rest when Caicedo's back and you have Santos and you have all those players. Play him where he's supposed to be playing.
Yeah, Sam, I see you chuckling there because I definitely want to highlight some more individual performances and Reece James being one of them for Chelsea, of course, being captain. Even though he's still so young, he's one of the more experienced players on the pitch for Chelsea in a time where that's exactly what they were desperate for, especially in those opening 25 minutes when we saw them kind of looking like they were stuck, up a creek without a paddle. What did you make of Reece James today?
I didn't think he was bad. Look, over here in England, the co-commentator and the broadcaster was toying with the idea of giving him man of the match, Janusz.
No.
which is why you saw me smile slightly when you started saying that. I think Reece James is asked to play a tremendously difficult role. I'd probably say he's asked to play 3 roles at once: holding midfield, right back, and right centre back, all rolled into one. Now, he's very, very good at football, so he can withstand a lot. He can take a lot of tactical instruction. And I know that Maresca's not there anymore, but the pattern of the season has been that he's actually tended to ask Reece James to do a lot. He's tended to ask Cucurella to do a lot. And he's tended to ask Malo Gusto to do a lot as well. We're talking about playing various different positions, taking on all sorts of different instructions. And when they're off the ball, when they're in man coverage, not talking about the NFL, when they're going man to man across the pitch, they all stick 1-to-1. And then when they split, Malo Gusto has to run over there, and it's so complicated. So I do have some sympathy when occasionally someone like Reece James just loses the ball. But I don't think he had a bad game.
I think he was mad. He was average. But look, until Chelsea simplify the way they're defending, first of all, stability, right? If you want to do anything in any league, in particular here, you have to know your defense and you have to play them, right? And okay, for one reason or another, Chelsea has issues, right? But everybody's so high on Achimpong, you could see it. Still too early for him, right? Just give him time. Reece James, let him play as a right fullback. He comes inside anyway, right? Because that's the role of fullback these days. You see that from Cucurella or fullback or any team. Arsenal players coming inside into the midfield as well. But I don't think it's the place. We all know that Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez and so they can do the job. There's no reason to play him there. But again, Fofana's been in and out. That back four. On top of it, Robert Sanchez obviously out as well, though Jorgensen played well. And I just think that it's been chopped and changed, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes I don't know why, right? I mean, you see Gusto right back, left back, everywhere. I just think that simplicity is the best thing. And until Chelsea becomes sound defensively, I think we're going to see games like this. Even Manchester City, Sam, and I think you remember that, right? I mean, this is just recently, give it a month or two, where finally Pep Guardiola had his back four the way he wanted, and he consistently played it. And Man City at their best, you could pretty much name their back four at all times. Liverpool at their best, same story. Chelsea, all over the shop when it comes to that department, and that's why they are where they are, or they are who they are.
The other team that's like that, of course, would be Ruben Amorim's Manchester United, because although he didn't do that today, he tends to sub a centre back, which drives the old school managers and commentators absolutely
I get it, necessity. There's been some injuries, but even with the injuries, there's always tinkering with Chelsea in there, and that doesn't help to settle the team.
Yeah, and I was about to say, we're almost 15 minutes into this stream, and a name that we have not mentioned is a name that we've gotten used to mentioning a lot anytime Manchester City play, and that, of course, is Erling Haaland. But no goals for the big man, again, in this one, in what I think many of us would have expected him to get at least one today. Sam, what do you put that down to? Was he just not getting the service that he needed?
I mean, he came incredibly close. Yeah. It was so close. I cannot believe that didn't go in. Like the way that hit the post and bounced back, incredible. That was a lovely strike. And the way he received the ball, flicked it onto his left and shot so quick, one motion. It was the one shot that Benoit Badiashile didn't block. And I have to give Badiashile some credit here, because he is one of those players, as Janusz intimates, he comes in and out. There's no consistency to his season. There's no consistency to whether or not he plays. And it must be really difficult to step into those scenarios and to come in against Erling Haaland. And I think he must have blocked 4 or 5 today. He was just in the way of everything. So Haaland did a really good job of dropping off the forward line, receiving the ball, turning, running, and opening up that shot. He's a little bit hesitant a couple of times and maybe let Badiashile in, but there were a couple that were just very well blocked. So I'm not sure what the stat sheet reads, but Haaland probably got 4 or 5 shots off today. one hit the post, the others were all blocked. I think he was probably a little unfortunate not to get onto the end of a couple of shirky clipped balls as well. It just didn't quite happen, but I think he played well.
Yeah. I mean, there are games where, right, when we talk about, oh, he's only had 6 touches in the game, right? 1 in the penalty area. Just before that post, right? Was it Badiashile? But he had a shot, maybe 30 seconds before that, he had a shot that was deflected, and Jorgensen still had to make a pretty decent save on that. So he had his looks today. I think he worked hard enough. They were looking for him. I thought some of the runs that he was making, even though it was tight, not a lot of room, it was okay. This is not one of those games where you say, well, when he scores 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes when he doesn't. But, it has to be said, last 2 games, today with Manchester City, kind of leads me into, my segue into this. Sorry, Alexis. But, this was a chance for us because City needed a statement win. You know what I mean? This is one of those. They haven't had it too many of them against big clubs, right? I mean, Liverpool and Manchester United, but Manchester United was very early, I think, if I remember. And Liverpool, I mean, both teams are nowhere near their best as well. I think both 3-0, but it just feels that these simple games like this one was in the first half, where it could have been 2 or 3-0, the 3-0, 4, once it's 1-0, City makes it 3 or 4-0 when they're good. That hasn't happened to Manchester City, and that's a worry.
Yeah, how big of a worry is that, Sam, do you think? And in terms of what Manchester City need to take from this game in terms of bigger picture now going forward, because it's getting to the business end of the season.
Yeah, so a month ago, I was worried that Man City were a very fragile team. I thought they were very, they were a high-powered attacking outfit, but they were fragile defensively. They were vulnerable in the last 15 minutes of games, and that would hurt them. I'm actually less concerned about that now, ironically, given they just conceded in the 96th minute. I'm now more concerned that they don't have the relentless killer instinct that is required. So at various different points over the last 3 months, I've been worried about Manchester City from a title contending perspective for one reason or another. And as I say that, I want to say I fully understand the fact that it's really hard to put everything together for top football teams, even if you're the best. Like having, relentless in attack, perfect in defense, consistent, energetic throughout. It's hard. It's a long season, and not everything's going to be perfect all at the same time. But I haven't really had those concerns with Arsenal, and I guess that's why we sit here today with the gap as it is in the table.
Yeah, Janusz, what about you? Do you have, how big of a concern is that for you in terms of the fact that we're talking about a Manchester City that, given last season, is probably no surprise, but when we still keep talking about them as being the ones that can realistically challenge Arsenal for this title, that they don't necessarily have that fear factor or that killer instinct that we thought they were at least getting back a little bit?
Yeah, the best word, is that ruthlessness. They're not ruthless enough. Although 2 weeks ago, I felt when they were on that run, because, we all remember that when Manchester City get on a good winning run, remember a few years back, it's all over. So look, this is a setback because Arsenal are doing exactly what City were doing when they were winning all these games. Even when they don't play well, they find a way, set pieces. We all know that. Settle back for incredible midfield players, deep squad that contributes all the time. But, it's only is it 4 points? It's still not over. As we all know, this is going to be the difficult part of the season. And I continue to believe that Manchester City can make a run at Arsenal. I really do, because they've proven it to me in the past that when it comes to the business end of the season, they can do it. Arsenal has not. In fact, Arsenal has fallen apart, February, March, April, right? I look at this now with FA Cup, Champions League, and all the pressure of that, right? And games coming thick and fast, big time games, right? Arsenal's got Liverpool, I think, next weekend. They may have Chelsea away, Manchester United there. City's got Brighton, Newcastle, and Manchester United away. And in between, I think Arsenal has Chelsea, don't they? In the Leagues Cup. So there's some unbelievable matches right now against top opponents. And I want to see still how Arsenal reacts to that, because I haven't seen it yet.
Sam, what do you think? Just looking at the table there, Manchester City now 6 points behind Arsenal. Janusz still believing that they can make a run and push the Gunners there. What do you think, especially with what we just said about the fact that ruthlessness, that way to kill off games once you take the lead is just not necessarily there?
Well, look, we're halfway through the season, so I'm not crowning anybody yet, but 6 points at this stage of the season, it does start to look, the gap starts to look quite big. It really does. It almost shocked me a little bit there as it came on the graphic, because it's been closer than that for a very long time. But this is a big slip from City, and this puts it in perspective. So look, we're 20 games in. There's plenty of football to be played. There's latter stages of the Champions League. There's all sorts to happen. But Arsenal have already weathered an injury crisis and come out of it somehow 6 points clear of City. And I won't detract from the idea that I think they're going to win the title. As I said at the start of the season, there's no reason for me to really change that prediction at this point after what we've seen. But let's not rule Manchester City out here, because Janusz just mentioned how they get on a run and they go. It's usually around this time of year, isn't it? It's through the Christmas period. They just steamroll everyone. So it is surprising to see them drop these points today, especially the way they did. But there's nothing to stop them winning the next 10 games in a row, because we know that's deep inside them somewhere. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. Well, we have to wait and see what happened to Guardiola and Diaz, because those are significant losses. Everybody goes through it, and but with the 6 points, apologies, I said 4. In my head, they were winning 1-0, and Chelsea didn't score. So that 6 points make it different. But yeah, I think there's going to be. City are capable. It's the only team left that is capable of putting pressure on Arsenal. With Arsenal, of course, heavy favorites right now. The way they're playing, and specifically even with that, game against Bournemouth, where they could have easily have dropped points, and they somehow found a way. I like games like this when you're gunning for a title.
Well, then where does this leave Chelsea now? Of course, in a week where we are looking for anything to give us an idea of the direction Chelsea are going to take. But when you see a performance like this, Janusz, I know it's just 1 point, but it feels almost like 3 points given the week that they've had, given the fact that not many would have given them a shot away at Manchester City in this one. They are now just 3 points off Liverpool in the top 4, from the top 4, level on points with Manchester United. So what do Chelsea take from this, and can they make a push for that top 4 spot?
Well, of course they can, because nobody truly wants it, right? I mean, if you look at, Manchester City dropping points, Liverpool dropping points, Manchester United dropping points, everybody's dropping points, right? That's why you're going to have, the Brightons of the world, and who knows, not Crystal Palace, but, everybody else there or thereabout, thinking to themselves, this is open. Maybe we can squeeze in. There may be 5 spots, right? So I don't think Chelsea's any different than they were. Of course, now there's a big question mark, because we will see if Rossignol becomes the manager. Another one that's inexperienced, right? We'll see what kind of impact he's going to have in the Premier League. We have zero idea how he's going to play, who he's going to value in terms of players. Are they going to be players that are going to get more playing time? We have zero idea about that, so we have to wait. But nothing's changed for me in terms of Chelsea where they were. I thought they were going to be in the fight for Champions League, and I continue to think that, because nobody's running away with it, and nobody around them looks great.
Sam, what do you think? What did Chelsea take from this one?
So just quickly, if it is Liam Rossignol, great news for your favourite Janusz, André Santos, who was obviously managed by him at Strasbourg on loan last year. So great news for this.
Time for another show, because I have a show just about him. I think he's got
a
positive impact on that team every time I see him.
But look, you just said that they're 3 points off Liverpool in 4th. They are 4 points above 14th.
Mm-hmm.
The Premier League table, the middle of it, is just wild. And if a team wins 2 games in a row, they just catapult up. Look at Brentford. What are Brentford doing up there? It's incredible. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but then also another team will lose 2 games over the next couple of games, and they'll drop 6 or 7 spots. Palace are currently basically right in the thick of it there. So for Chelsea, I guess it's just, I don't think you look at the table and you think that this works for you or it doesn't. Really, you look beyond the table and you just go, this was a situation where we could easily have just completely collapsed. No manager, 3 or 4 key players out, Caicedo, Sanchez, Fofana, all these guys not playing. It's City away. It's probably the second most difficult game on the calendar. And you're stuck in there, and you got to the 96th minute and you stole an equaliser, and you deserved it. I think just being able to keep your heads above water this week is a phenomenal achievement for Chelsea. And so that's what I take from it. There's a bit of resistance in there, and that's good to see from a mental point of view.
All right, final question before we start wrapping, just because this is, of course, January, which means the January transfer window. We know Chelsea still don't have their permanent manager yet. Manchester City getting one or two players back that have made the difference. Janusz, usually games like these, big games like these, kind of give us more of an indication of where or what direction the club may want to go in terms of bringing in new recruitments in January. For Chelsea and City, what would you want to see after what you saw from both sides today?
Yeah, Chelsea, more players. Although they could use it, they could use it. I mean, look, I still continue to think that they need a quality center back. It's not there. I mean, Levi Colwill, okay, I don't even remember when he's coming back. If he does come back after such a, I mean, it's going to take time, right? I mean, that back four is not steady. If Cucurella is there and Reece James is there, then I'm okay. After that, I don't see that John Terry figure, right? I mean, I need to see somebody like that with that experience that can organize the team in those difficult moments as well. So if somehow they can find somebody like this, I would welcome that. After that, I don't know if how active Chelsea are going to be in terms of spending money for these top experienced players, because that's going to cost crazy. And it doesn't seem that they want to be going that way. If anything, they'll buy more young players. For Manchester City, I mean, look, Semenyo comes in. I suppose that's going to be positive. We'll see how he reacts to playing for a big club with massive expectation, because we've seen some big names come into the big clubs and they don't look the part because it's just different. So, but if Semenyo comes in, and I still don't think that City are going to be buying more than that. One or two players, they're good enough everywhere, I think. The biggest problem for Pep is to get the best out of some great players that he has. That's a bigger issue. I don't think anybody, there's a player that comes in and changes the way Manchester City play.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this season I've seen Matheus Nunes improve quite a lot, but if I was City, I would always be on the look for another right back if something came up. I'm not saying dive into the market and overpay, but I keep seeing suggestions that Joao Cancelo isn't interested in being in Saudi Arabia anymore and maybe wants a half a season in Europe ahead of the World Cup. I don't know if he and Pep can bury whatever hatchet there was there, but these sorts of situations, they crop up. And if I was City, I would be attentive to the right back market now that they have seemingly sorted the auxiliary goal scorer situation, because we all know that City are too reliant on Erling Haaland to score goals. And then with Chelsea, I mean, I've stopped recommending Chelsea buy players because they've bought so many. But I can certainly get on board with Janusz's logic there that they lack a world-class centre-back at the moment, I guess.
Janusz, you wanted to chime in?
No. That's good. Good shout at right back. I never thought about it. That's a good shout for City, yeah.
All right. Well, Sam and Janusz, thank you guys so much for chatting with us. Thanks to everyone for tuning into this edition of ESPN FC Live. What a day in the Premier League it has been. I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty more reaction on the ESPN FC show. Until then, we'll see you next time.